Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wild Woman Podcast. I have a very interesting guest with me today, all the way from Canada, and her name is Emily Greene, and she's known professionally as Emily the Medium. So many of you may have come across her. If you've been watching other podcasts, because I came across her and I can't, we were just chatting before I hit record, and I've talked about it often on this podcast that conversations and guests just feel guided to me at the right time. So I don't question it. Sometimes they're changed, somebody else comes in. It's always as it's meant to be. So we'll trust that in this conversation as well, that what needs to be shared is shared with whoever is listening now or in the future. And what I found very interesting about Emily, as well as being, she is a psychic medium, but her focus, which I haven't come across before, she specializes in supporting families connect to the energies of their children or their spirit babies, which is a lovely way of, I love the lovely term, at all phases of the journey. So that could be somebody maybe struggling with fertility, or they're pregnant, or after conception, maybe after losing a child, or miscarriage, or stillbirth. But really, I get the sense of sort of tuning into the spirit of, and we just talked about it a moment ago. If you think of all of the babies who are coming into the earth right now, and it's a really exciting time during
Yeah.
this great awakening period on our planet. So, um, lovely to hear from those spirits before they come in, and those babies and what they've to share. So, welcome,
Yes.
Emily. It's just really lovely to
Thank
have you
you.
here. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank you. Such a beautiful intro and very happy to be here. I'm always excited to talk about this with people, especially to those who it's, newer kind of concept or idea.
Mm,
When I discovered this ability or this work or this focus almost 10 years ago, it wasn't anything that was on my radar. I was working as a healer and as a medium, and this was a spirit baby, or the fact that we could communicate with a soul before they incarnated was just not even something that was in my awareness at that time. And over the years, it's just evolved, and I think there is such a, like we were speaking about before, there's such a beauty and a love and such a benefit in this work, in this communication for people who are looking to call in their children. But I think even further than that, it's amazing to look at the big picture as well when we consider these energies and all that they are coming in sort of encoded with, and all of the gifts that they're bringing, and all of the wisdom and the knowledge that they're bringing. And I mean, they surprise me every day, and I get to learn things from them every day. And it really has just, as somebody who, like you, is very interested in the journey of awakening, and have had my own journey, of course, as I know you have as well, and seeing how that in my individual awakening and the ripple effect into the collective and the collective awakening. And I find it very exciting and very interesting to kind of marry these two concepts of, okay, yes, it's fertility and it's babies and it's all these things, but it's also, these are not just babies, right? These are brilliant, intelligent souls coming into human baby bodies. And as
mm.
they grow
Wow, I
older,
know.
I know, goosebumps, right?
When you say that, yeah, yeah, wow.
Yeah. And as they grow older, and as they learn to communicate and speak, and bring the energy into this world that they came in to bring, everything kind of comes together. And so I think I just started thinking about it um, a little sooner, where I said, well, yes, this is amazing. And also, I want to start understanding these energies and what they're bringing and what's different about them, and what are their interests and what's their purpose and what are they saying about the earth and why are they coming to this
Oh my
earth?
God, so many questions.
So
And
many questions.
but before we get into all of those,
Yeah.
which I really do want to get into, and
Yeah.
why now and why you would, how did this all start? So you said you had been working as a psychic medium and a healer before this happened about 10 years ago, so probably around 2015, I'm guessing
Yep.
2014.
That's right.
So what was life like for you growing up as a child? Like going back to you, have you connect
Yes.
have you connected but to your own obviously spirit, before you came in, have you had that capacity to reconnect with, you know,
Yes.
and know what you
Yeah.
was
Great
doing?
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. As a child, I was very psychic, but didn't know how to express it properly. And it would kind of come out in, the way, like, I was very scared because I didn't know what was happening. And unfortunately, because of the lens and the reference points that I had, all of the psychic experiences that I was having as a child were kind of funneled through my lens of oh, this is something to be scared of and to be fearful of. And in hindsight now, knowing that that was all just, my awareness, and that sensitivity could sometimes be frightening. But I also understand that there was my team, my spirit team was around from the beginning and looking for ways to bring me comfort and guide me through that time. But yeah, I was a very, very psychic child. And again, that was not necessarily something that I had been given the tools to know how to process that, to know how to express that, to express myself in that way. And so, unfortunately, like many children do, I ended up stuffing that down and repressing it. And, I did that very consciously actually around age 10. I said, I don't want this anymore. This is too much for me. Take it away. Whatever this is, I don't want it. And went on to have a very normal teenage life and years where I think my intuition was still um, coming out. And my friends in high school would always joke like, are you a psychic or something, and I became like, no, 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 I'm a good guesser. Or it was very much like it wasn't something that I was interested um, in exploring or accepting, because I had had so many sort of experiences that were challenging and I interpreted to be scary. And so that all went on until I was graduating high school when I was 17. And it just felt like a huge crisis point in my life, where I was watching all of my friends kind of go off and do all the things that they were supposed to do, and going to the school and all these things. And something in my gut was just like, that's not your path. That's not your path. That's not the way you're supposed to go. You're not supposed to go that way. And instead, I was shown this vision of the future where I was helping people and where I was doing healing work with people. And that's the kind of alternate path, or the path that I was shown. And I interpreted that at the time of, oh, I'm supposed to be a therapist, I'm supposed to be a social worker, I'm supposed to be a psychologist. And so I ended up, attempting to go to school for that. I got about a year in and I was like, this is still just not where I'm supposed to be. I'm off my path and I need to find my way back. And so I took some time away, and that year following that attempt at the university was part of when I began to have my reawakening, where I realized that I had been repressing these gifts, and that actually these gifts were what I was supposed to use in order to actualize this vision that I saw of helping people and supporting them, and doing healing work and mediumship and so on. And so I started to have this sense, and but didn't really know what to do with it. Again, I felt very lost. And so I just started reading, and I started researching, and I started meditating and journaling. And that was really the beginning of everything. I kind of slowly but surely found my way back to what I had repressed as a child, and learned how to have very high vibrational, positive, loving experiences. And I learned protection and everything that's necessary in order to be, a sensitive being in this planetary matrix.
Mm.
And so that was kind of the beginning, and found my first mentor around that time who helped me do just that, and began and opened my practice when I was 21 years old, which
21. I was going to say,
21.
because I know you're young. I was like, when did this all happen?
Yeah,
When you were 21.
21.
So you
Yeah.
sound like you're on a bit of the fast lane of maybe the age you are and the time you came in, that it's needed now. So,
Yes.
we're not hanging around with you. Did
Yes.
you, I'm just thinking of young people listening now who could be, or maybe their parents. And I know
Hmm.
we're living in a slightly different world and hopefully there's more openness. But did
Hmm.
you, I remember, and I'm a good bit older than you, that sense it's been awoken by listening to other people of being very sensitive and picking up on everything when I was so young. And I shut it down really until very recently, I think in the last few years. But,
Yes.
it's been through probably people I met. So for younger people as well, what sort of advice would you give? Like, it sounds like a mentor came to you probably
Yeah.
very just naturally, is it? Did you
Yeah.
search someone out or did they just show up?
I did. I found it. And I know what you mean. That
Mm,
sometimes the mentor will just sort of show up in front of
mm,
you. But I found her. I was one day meditating, and something told me to Google the name Stephanie and healer, and then the city that I was living in at the time. And so I did, and she was the first person wwho popped up. And then I reached
well,
out to her, and she was like, "Well, it just so happens that I had an opening, and you can come in tomorrow." And it's one of those things where it was like. And then I sat down and she was like, "I'm so glad you're here. I've been waiting for you." It's just one of those things that when I mean, it's what they say, like your teacher, the person who is meant to take you into a certain part of your path will appear at the moment that you need them the most. And usually it'll happen in a very synchronistic, serendipitous way, as it did for me.
beautiful. And it's
Yeah.
just lovely for people to know that I think, particularly if you're struggling
Yeah.
and, how do I do this in this world and I don't feel like I fit in, even by just setting that intention, I suppose, and just being open, you know,
Yes.
and being alert to
Absolutely.
things that happen, as you said, the synchronistic moments is key. It's been key on my path.
Yes.
And I think anyone else I've met on a similar path, when
It's
the
the
other
same.
way fails, of trying to push and shove and find your way, you know.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. And that's I think that's the primary piece of advice that I would give is that I think it is for me what the process looked like is was less of listening to what other people were doing and it was less of listening to opinions or suggestions because there's lots of that. It's like, well, you're good at this and you should try this and you're good at that and you should try this.
Mm.
Or this is a good field and you should follow that and go into this or this sort of thing. And I just had to learn how to tune that out and to actually listen to my own spirit and what my own spirit was speaking to me and what my gut was speaking to my heart was speaking to me. And that's not necessarily something that we are instructed on how to listen to that. And so I think that it was very much a something that I had to learn to do on my own. And so I think that that is for the young person who's listening to this, who's maybe in a similar position now or in the future. I think that that's something that is of utmost importance. Have you actually learned how to like listen to your own spirit and when it's talking to you, your gut, and not only listening, but then following through and acting upon these things? Because once I learned to do that, like you, I call it following the breadcrumbs, right? Following the path, following the yellow
Following
brick
the bread,
road.
exactly. And we're only shown, well, my experience is, we're only shown the next step. That's what
That's
I,
it.
we
That's it.
don't get, and we're sort of conditioned almost to look for the opposite. So we're
Yes.
undoing a lot of this, aren't we, now that, this undoing
Yes.
of, yes, have a vision and a dream and all of that, but really you got to be here now. What's
Yes.
showing up next?
Oh,
Mm.
absolutely. I love that you said that because I think that's just it. It's like, and that's what many of us are sort of given the conditioning around. Well, okay, you choose this path, and then in 2 years you'll have this, and then in 3 years you'll have this, and 4 years you'll be here. And it's like you have this kind of trajectory and this goal and this plan. And I think when you're on the spiritual path, it doesn't work that way. And there really is this, I call it magic in the mystery, right? Where it's like, okay, can I just be okay with just having the next direct step that's in front of me? And I don't know what's coming next necessarily. And I'm okay with that. It's funny, I have lots of friends and psychic friends and things, and they're like, I'm tuning in 10 years and this is where I'm going to be and I'm going to be here. And this is, and I don't know, for me, I could look and I could probably find out, but in a way I don't want to. I think there's such a a beauty in allowing yourself to be surprised by what's coming next and to embrace the mystery of this world and to be given what you're supposed to be given at the time that you're supposed to be given it. And I think I've just landed in this really beautiful place of and it feels much nicer than all of the pushing and the forcing and the,
Mhm.
but just in this place of real like co-creation with this universal power and this higher self and also, not having to know all of the answers all the time. It is it's a nice place now. I've landed here.
Lovely. That is such, yeah, and it's such, yeah, it's really beautiful to hear that and just be reminded. I think we all need to be reminded. So as
Yeah.
we move on, because I'm sort of conscious that you then, so you moved into becoming, so you always were working, is it, as a psychic
Yeah.
medium? And
Yes.
then that evolved into working with the spirit baby. So maybe just take us a little bit how through
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely. And actually, I forgot to mention this, but
Mhm.
actually in the very, very beginning of my practice, I was at, and I see this now as part of the initiation into, I really believe that my team and spirit and my higher self were kind of orchestrating this in a very specific way where they would bring people to me like you and your podcast, they would bring people to me who I was supposed to, although I was, serving them, supporting them in my practice, they were also serving and supporting me in some way because I was learning more about energy in the body and how energy is moving through the body. And, I really got kind of an up close and personal training in this very early on. And so I was actually doing energy healing work and I was doing energy mapping. And so kind of similar to sort of medical intuition, where I was understanding, okay, this person, as I'm scanning them, I'm seeing kind of a pooling of energy here, and the energy is not circulating properly in this area, and so on and so forth. And so that was kind of my first. I was learning how to like map energy and how it's moving through the system and
Mhm.
why energy is not moving properly, and then how to move it effectively and how to help people facilitate their own self-healing capacities and powers. And so that was actually the very beginning, and from there that kind of
Is
transitioned
that,
into, yeah,
sorry, Emily,
that's
I don't
okay.
want to stop you there, but
Okay.
is that, when you say in the energy pooling, and I presume is
Mhm.
a lot of that through trauma and just emotional sort of
Yeah,
disturbances and experiences that happen that causes most of that, isn't it?
absolutely,
Primarily.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
primarily, yes. And then that, let's say in particular, if there was a lot of energy pooling in the stomach area, for whatever reason, whether that was to do with someone in their power and their power center, this sort of thing, or there's kind of a misplaced, imbalanced relationship with power, and their own power, then, we
Mm.
could see the energy pooling and then checking with the person and they go, well, yeah, I've had Crohn's or colitis my whole life. And it's manifesting kind of in a physical way, right? So I got to learn this connection between how energy is moving through the system or not moving through the system, and then how that's actually manifesting in the way of different physical manifestations of imbalance or disease or illness and so on. And so that was a very powerful kind of part of my training because I still use that perspective and those techniques today to see not just where energy is not moving within the body, but even moreover within kind of the this entire matrix or hologram of that person's energy, the entire energy field, their life, their circumstances, their soul, and so on. And so, yeah, it was wonderful practice. And from there, in those sessions started to get, people showing up and I knew I couldn't ignore them. And so instead of ignoring them, I just decided to start talking to them and trying to figure out who they were. And then this kind of began the more mediumship focused side of my journey, which again was humongously, tremendously helpful of just learning how to connect soul to soul with somebody not in their body and how to interpret and receive their evidence and their messages was just hugely like a great training for everything else that I'm doing now because I now understand that we can have that soul and we can have that soul to soul communication with anyone, whether they are living in a physical body, not living, they're not no longer connected to a physical body. Um, whether we have met them in physical world before or not. And so again, you know, you can kind of see these like different phases. And of course, all of these things are still a part of my work today, but it was very much like my team was taking me through and they were like, okay, we're going to take her here first. And she has to work with these people and she has to learn this. And so while I had mentors and while I was doing trainings and things like this, I think that much of my initiation and much of my training was very much experiential, where I was learning in the moment as I went and I was picking things up and kind of charting it all on my own. Um,
And you were trusting. I mean,
yeah,
when you say your team, and I know just for some people listening, they might go,
yeah,
"Well, who are a team?" You mean sort of your spirit team, obviously your spirit guys.
yes.
How did they introduce themselves? Like, or how did you? Is it a collective, or would you say there are many different
Yeah.
energies that come in at different times, or how?
Great question. Yeah, I think that in the beginning, before I really made the effort to make conscious connection, I mean, I had done different meditations where I would be interested in meeting different members of my team in spirit, and would meet kind of one at a time. You know, they would kind of be like, okay, I would meet this one
Mm,
on one day, and then I would spend some time just creating a conscious connection with that energy and that guide, and from there then they would bring in a new one and they'd be like, okay, you're ready to meet some more, and then there would be more energies who came in, and like you said, you know, there's energies that have come in and out over the years. There's guys that I worked with in the beginning who have sort of regressed into the background now, and other energies have stepped forward. So I think that, like you said, they come in at the moments in the path where they need to, and when they are looking to support something specific that I'm working through in my life. And I know that this is true for most everyone as
mm,
well, where we have different energies come in and out. And, you know, in the beginning, it was like I could just, it could, I was experiencing it kind of clairaudiently, like a voice, and it sounded different from my own thought voice. So I knew that this was some sort of higher power speaking to me. And with a little bit more inquiry, I understood now that, oh, this is one of the members of my spirit team. And you know, now I can kind of just call them up and close my eyes and see them in my inner vision, and it's very just easy. It's like talking just the way that you and I speak. And so that's how it's kind of evolved now, but that took time to get to
yeah.
that point where that connection was as open as it is now.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
have they all, I hear a lot of people talking, and it's come up for me recently, like say, Mary Magdalene, there's different sort of
Yeah.
those energy, or I suppose there's different, I'm sort of going off a little bit now here, but it's just like, as you say, it's sort of different lineages is there that many of us are associated with. It seems that we're finding, I seem to be
Yes.
connecting with a lot of women who are saying they're from, the Magdalene maybe
Yes.
line, and then we're finding each other. So is there something in that's what's happening now,
Yeah.
particularly?
Absolutely. I
What is
think
that?
so. I think, and I personally feel very connected to the Magdalene lineage as well,
Mm,
and that's come online for me more recently. But I think that's true as well, where different energies, you know, and it really is. I think, I don't know particularly what it is, but in my experience,
mm,
it is that different energies or guides or spiritual teachers or ascended masters and that will present themselves maybe the whole way through someone's path or someone's journey, and they're ever present, they're always there. More in my experiences, these energies come in and out as necessary to serve a specific purpose, something I'm working through. They
yes.
have a perspective or um, you
Mm,
know, love or support to offer at a particular
fire or
time.
something
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
might need.
exactly. Exactly. Or, you know, in the
Yeah.
beginning, I was very connected with the angelic realm and was very
Mm,
connected to different angelic frequencies and archangelic frequencies, and different, you know, had connections with different archangels and still do. But in the beginning, that was very important for me to experience that angelic love and protection. And because I had had such a hard time growing up, where to feel this angelic protection was what I needed at that time. Um,
mm.
and you know, at different points, you know, I've connected a lot with yes, Mary Magdalene, with Yeshua, with Saint Germain, and so on, and that's been and Metatron, and of
Yeah,
course
so you
that's
sort
more
of
in the
fine tune, I
yeah,
imagine, yeah.
yeah.
And so as people or spirits or souls who had passed started to come in, did
Hmm.
you recognize that? Were you sort of, how how did you deal? Did you work with someone to sort of develop that, or you said you just sort of found, did you just what am I trying to ask you here? You just sensed that that was
Yeah.
maybe a soul connected to that person. Is it a some?
That's how, yes. And also simultaneously, I was working in, I actually went every Sunday for 3 years. I went to a mediumship development circle with my
Mhm.
original mentor. She actually didn't ask me. She said, okay, Sunday, 10 a.m. be there. I
You
wasn't
need
given
that
a choice.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. She was like, you need to come here and I'll call you if you don't show up, kind of thing. And so it was perfect for me because I probably wouldn't have gone if she hadn't had said, you need to be there. I'm putting, part of the reason I'm putting this on is to support you. And so it was just me and two other women. And we just practiced and called in, we opened the field and opened our awareness and saw what happened and started to get comfortable with like trust. That was such a big thing, as it is for many people who are learning to explore and experience their abilities of, okay, you're getting this very specific reference and you need to say it. You need to
Mm.
share that. And even if you're scared that it won't fit or that the person won't understand it, again, really getting comfortable kind of sharing this information very boldly without fear.
Yes.
So it was kind of simultaneously happening where I was and maybe it was happening because I was a part of these circles, but it was simultaneously happening where these energies would start showing up in my readings and my sessions. And then I used what I'd learned in terms of figuring out, okay, how is this energy connected to this person? Is it an ancestor? Is it a guide? Is it a manifestation of their higher self? And so kind of going through this process um, of fine tuning, working with the energy and why they were coming forward, because I really believe in my sessions, like there's a reason this energy is here. And it could be someone you weren't even expecting to hear from, your maternal great 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 grandmother that you have obviously never known in your life, but there's something that she's bringing forward today, some sort of gift, some sort of teaching and offering that is significant or important for this person on that given day. And so it was always kind of like, it really was like solving a mystery. It's like, why are you here? And what's your message? And how is your appearance here serving this individual and their path? Um, and so, yeah, I just felt from the beginning that nothing was random and that the
Yeah.
energies that were showing up for very particular specific reasons, not just for them, but also for me, because like every energy I've ever talked to, I'm learning something from them. I'm really like picking up their teachings and their transmission and everything, and that supported me on my path as well.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then how I love when you describe like they're the souls, I suppose, that have left the earth, and then there are those who are coming in. And I've never, it's like it sounds like they were nearly knocking on the door going, you're talking to
Yes.
them, but we're the ones arriving.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
what? They've left.
Exactly. Yes.
I
So
haven't heard
around,
anyone else. Sorry, I just haven't
yeah.
heard anyone else speaking. I'm sure there are, I don't
Yes.
know, but just haven't heard of anyone
Yes.
talking about the spirit babies coming in.
I was so excited when this started to happen as well. And I remember the moment. It was um, around well, it kind of happened there's a process, but very specifically around the year 2019. I had already been doing this work for a while and working with the spirit babies had come in. They just like the souls they started to make themselves known and come into my sessions, even for people who hadn't given birth to children for 40, 50 years and now we're having these beautiful experiences with these souls. And so it was happening for people even in ways that you wouldn't expect. And around 2019, I got this very vivid visitation in meditation. And, you know, this energy said, I understand now it was part of this team that I've been talking about as well. And they said, um, you've received what you've needed to receive in this time, your primary focus being of healing and mediumship. And we now need to ask you to pivot your focus to be in supporting these incoming souls and helping them make their way into this planetary space. um, that's where we need you. That's where we need your focus essentially. And you've gotten everything that you need from this time, and now we need you to put your focus here. And so that was kind of right at the end of 2019. And in 2020 is when I really started to um, kind of publicly share this as my focus, that this was my focus, and starting to explore different theories and concepts and this sort of thing that were showing up in my meditations and in my readings. And that's kind of when everything changed, um, was 2020, which is
Yeah.
interesting in hindsight.
Everything changed for
Yeah,
sure,
everything changed.
for sure. So there's obviously it's obviously a very important period. So are you of this? Yes, okay. So did clients then start coming in who what started to happen? Did clients start to find you who were hoping to conceive a child,
Yep.
or
Yep.
how did that sort of unfold?
Yeah. Well, even before that point, um, I, and again, I truly believe that the people that were finding their way to me, I mean, these were people who I'm same as you. I was like, "How did you find me?" And they'd be like, "I have no
I
idea how I
know.
found you." You know,
That's exactly, I know.
I don't even know how I found your email, and here I am. But the people who were finding me were, and I have kind of a handful of clients who I will never forget because they were what began to shape my spirit baby work. They were like the first five people who showed up on the scene, and brought their spirit babies with them. And the first woman that I worked with, and I tell her story all the time because she is truly what brought this concept into
Mm.
my awareness, which is she came to me just for a healing session and we were going to do energy healing. And, as she came in, her intention was clarity, and that's all I had, which was fine because I was like, clarity, we can do that. And as I opened up my awareness, this little girl showed up in this. I can still picture her in my mind as clear as day. She had light brown hair, curled, curled, curly light brown hair, and she was about 3 or 4, and she was wearing this black party dress and like with lace trim at the bottom and these little black party shoes. And she, as I was tuning into her through my mediumship lens, I was saying, "Oh, this is a deceased loved one."
Mm.
So I started describing her to this woman, and she was like, "I have no idea who you're talking about." And so then I had to go back to the spirit that I was clearly connected with. I knew that this
Mm.
energy was real. I knew, like, she was so clear and so vivid, and she wasn't going anywhere. And so I said, she says she doesn't recognize you. Can you help me out here? Like, we're trying to figure out who you are. And she said, tell her that I'm her daughter. And I came back to the woman. I said, she's saying that she is your daughter. And I was thinking in my head at this time, like, wouldn't this woman know if she had lost a daughter? Like, I didn't understand. And she said, well, that's so interesting because the reason I'm here with you, which I didn't tell you, is because my husband and I have been experiencing infertility. And I had a miscarriage 6 months ago, and I always felt it was a girl. And so I'm like, oh, is this it? And again, this wasn't even something that was in my awareness, or I didn't even know that this was something that was possible. And so I went back to the soul and I said, is this right? Is this how you're connected to my client? And she was so excited and said, like, yes, you figured it out. And so then from there, we just went on to have this beautiful connection with this soul. And she was giving so much love and comfort and peace to this, and validating details of the miscarriage, and bringing her comfort and healing, um, and all these things. It was so, so beautiful. And also, said that she was going to bring another baby in for her,
Mm.
and that she was helping with that. And then 3 months later, this client messaged me and said she was pregnant. She went on to have a beautiful boy, and has two grown boys now, and they're, happy and healthy. And so that's how it all started, was with this
Wow.
one soul
So,
um, who came in.
did- and did they
Yeah,
say why? Because I suppose that's often a question for people like, is well,
yeah,
why? Like, why didn't they come in? And
I know.
is that,
Yeah,
I personally, I would take that that's part of a soul contract, I imagine.
yep, yep,
How would you explain that? Because I know it can be a very difficult
yes,
experience for someone to go through and be told.
yes. It's so interesting because in the beginning, she said that it was she was only meant to be with her mom for a short time, and that she was meant to bring her a healing through her short time with her. And once that healing was completed, then she knew that she needed to exit. And so that's exactly like you said, that's soul contract 101. That's I had something to bring you. I had a healing to bring you. And once that was offered and once that was completed, then the contract was completed for that in that particular moment. And I could kind of move my way out now, knowing after years of understanding miscarriage and understanding child loss. And I now know that for every soul, there are things that I could say of it's sometimes this and it's sometimes that, but for every soul, no loss or no miscarriage is the same. Everyone has a different purpose and a different reason and a different meaning. There's spiritual reasons and many of it, much of it is spiritual, much of it is energetic or emotional. Um, but more often than not, the message is um, either I was here to give you something from this soul, the soul of this child to this parent. I was here to help you. I was here to help you grow. I was here to help you learn. I was here to help you heal. I was here to help you awaken. So many stories. I have so many stories of parents who have miscarriages and then go on to have incredible spiritual awakenings, incredible, and heart-opening experiences and everything. And it can also be that the soul needed something from the pregnancy, the short or, even sometimes full-term pregnancies where souls exit before they are born, where the soul needed something. They were searching for something or hoping for something within that experience that they were able to get. And because they were able to get that, they completed a mission in 2 short weeks or 3 short months or 7 short months, and sometimes what it takes some of us our entire lives to accomplish. And so that's something that I've understood over time as well, is that it's not always um, just about us. It's often, actually, a lot of the time, it's about what the soul needs, the soul of this child. And so one of the things I like to say to parents is, when we're experiencing loss, um, we don't have to like it. We don't have to be glad for it, especially in the moment. That's not usually our first inclination when when loss is happening in any form, is to be like, oh, I'm so grateful.
Mm.
We don't have to like it. We don't have to think it's great. But what we can do, what we can open our hearts to, is understanding in some way, shape, or form that the soul of the child that we were carrying for the time that we did had a plan. They had their own mission, they had their own vision for that experience. And even if we don't like it, we can respect it. And so I say, like, opening our hearts to respecting the journey of the soul, and that we can have this perception that, oh, life is only when we are born and we live and we die and we have this whole life. But for them, they're saying to me all the time, well, no, that's not true, because I learned more as a soul in those 3 weeks in utero than I've learned in my entire journey as a soul, across
Wow.
time and
So
space.
what might that be? Because just out of curiosity, what might
Oh,
I say in 3 months in utero?
so much. I mean, I think much of it is very simple teachings of patience, of unconditional love. A lot of them are looking to come experience unconditional love. Many souls say that during their short time in utero, they got to experience unconditional love, and all they knew was love. All they knew was the love of their mother, feeling that and having that like circulated through their entire system
Mm.
all day, every day. And
Wow.
that's like a very powerful thing for a soul to only have ever experienced love, without experiencing anything else. No fear, no ego, no polarity, just love. And so that's what many of them are looking for, um, is to experience these emotions in concentrated periods of time without anything else to contrast that, if that makes sense. So they're
Yes.
saying, I'm just here for love, or I'm just here to learn patience, or I'm just here to bring hope or to feel hope. And that's all. That like just that sort of very concentrated transmission of energy is usually what they're looking for. Because that's one of the only ways that we can get that. We can't really get that anywhere else. As soon as we're born, there's not just love, but there's also, you know,
Life.
other things. Yeah, life, exactly.
Right. And then,
Exactly.
wow, oh my gosh. And I
Hmm.
suppose it just strikes me, it's just, each soul is part of that expansion of the universe, ever expanding. So
Yes.
each
Yes.
experience, obviously, I don't know with the particular soul, maybe they'll come back and incarnate, and maybe that experience of experiencing unconditional love, they'll bring then to
Exactly.
their
That's
incarnation
it.
on earth, isn't
That's it. Exactly right. Exactly right. And sometimes that's those same energies come back in different times. And because of the love and the whatever they were looking to get in that other pregnancy, they come back in a future pregnancy and now they have that, right? They have whatever they picked up in that time. And that can happen in the same lifetime, but like you said, it can happen in other lifetimes as well. Some are so complete with what they receive that they don't necessarily need to come back in that same kind of generational cycle. They'll wait and they'll just soak it in and sort of bask in it. And that's just it. I mean, I think when we really think big picture, and I think sometimes it's very hard for people, some people that I work with to think big picture because we're like, we just want this child. I just want this baby. I was so connected to this experience and so connected. That's all I want. And so I think it's so difficult sometimes to think about the big picture. And so I always say too that like we don't really have to think about the big picture when we're actively grieving. That's not always um, what we need. For some people, it is. For me, it was. For me, it has been in my journey. I find great comfort in the big picture when I'm in the minutia of the human experiences. It's very comforting for me, but I know not for everyone. Um, but when you're ready, I like to say that will what you need to have revealed to you around that experience, around that loss, will be. And, sometimes that takes decades. Like I mentioned, I've worked with people who had losses, 20, 30 years in the past and have only just started to process and understand and heal from those experiences now.
Well, I'll just tell you one small thing, and then
Yeah.
I'll move on to, just because I know I'm conscious of
Yeah.
your time as well. I don't think I'm revealing too much, but it was just my mother said to me recently, she had a
Hmm.
miscarriage before me,
Mm.
and she's 94.
Wow.
Yeah, so she's a good age, and a public health nurse came to visit her in the house one day, and her daughter had just had a miscarriage. So she was telling
Mm.
my mother, and my mother said, "Oh, I had a miscarriage at whatever age." And we both knew when she said it, she was still, you could feel it off her.
Wow.
And she said the doctor told her it's your fault because she was doing something, busy doing things. And in that moment, I just felt, wow, she's still carrying that
Mm.
guilt and grief at
Mm.
94. And the nurse continued to tell her it wasn't her fault. And I actually feel that maybe something did happen in that conversation that helped her maybe let go at
Oh,
this stage, but to carry it
wow.
that long.
Oh, that I feel such emotion as I'm hearing you say that because I think that has been for many of our, family members that, and even still today, I know there are still women who I talk to who say, you know, I got on a plane in my first trimester and my doctor told me that that could be why I miscarried. And I mean, and you're right. It's something I think, especially as feminine beings, as women, that is something that, whether we decide to have children or not, that uh, desire to create and to nurture and to love and then this sort of very deep conditioning of shame and of you know, uh, we're wrong and we're broken and whatever the narrative is that that's still very much manifesting for many people and we're holding on to that. And so my prayer is that through this, and maybe that nurse showed up at just the right time to
Yeah,
hopefully, for your
yeah.
mom, help her through it. so that she can really experience that healing,
Yeah.
finally.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
just to move on as well to so the babies that are coming in
yeah.
and have come in. So what sort of, I suppose, my sense anyways in the last 10 years, I think we all know or more, is that many very sensitive young
Hmm.
children coming in, very high vibrational.
Yeah,
What's the experience you're seeing and what maybe have they to share with us, before
yeah,
they come in?
absolutely. Yeah, it's a very exciting time for us. Obviously, here, we're seeing in real time so much of these new frequencies making their way in, and that obviously doesn't always look pretty on one level, but it's very exciting for us. And I really feel collectively that many souls, including us, I think that I see. I see this as these kind of generational waves of souls. And part of my perspective on this has been influenced by Dolores Cannon's work. I'm a big fan of her work, and in her work, she posited this theory of what she calls the three waves of volunteers. And so as I started reading about that, I was just having like I actually had to put the book, one of the books I read is called The Three Waves of Volunteers in the New Earth by Dolores Cannon. And when I was reading this book, I had to put it down because I was having like so many breakthroughs as I was reading through this that it was almost like my brain kind of felt like it was hurting. and, and I made this connection that the theory that she was bringing to the surface is that there are generational waves of souls, and that each generational wave of souls is here to seed or create or to plant or to shift something very specific. And so when I was sort of applying this to my own work with the souls that I was working with in real time, um, is that is still continues to be true. But I believe that there are kind of these subcategories of these energies that are coming in this current generational wave that have very specific purposes. And so through the process of writing my book, actually in 2023, I kind of split these up into three different subcategories of this current generational wave, which I don't necessarily have a name for, but I know some people do. I call them the New Earth children.
Hmm.
Is what I call them, where I believe that they're here to help us create and actualize and live in this new earth frequency. And so I split those up into three categories called the activators, the integrators, and the preparers. And I think that we could say that there are specific years or decades that we could kind of relate each subcategory to, but I think that they're all coming in simultaneously, to serve different purposes at different places on the planet. But the preparers are these energies, similar to what probably our parents and grandparents have done here. Where they are here to prepare the way and to clear the way for the next generation to do their work and to seed their light on the planet. And the preparers are still doing that in this time. I think it's just happening in a different way now, where the preparers are coming in to kind of prepare us for what's coming, to prepare us for these planetary changes, to prepare us for the way that society is going to run and the way that the earth is going to be. That is sort of their role. And so they're, clearing. They're very good at clearing. They're very good at unearthing kind of things that are out of integrity. And I always sort of see it as like them like pulling out the rotten kind of roots, and making room in the soil for like the fresh seeds and the fresh plants and the fresh flowers. So many of these preparers, and I think that there's a lot actually in the Pluto and Scorpio generation, Pluto and Sagittarius generation, Pluto Libra generation, who are kind of like preparer energies, where they're sort of like this excavation, we're pulling out the roots and clearing the soil so that the new can come in. Um,
Mm,
the activators are who actually are coming in my experience anyway, who are coming in the greatest frequency now. These are the souls who are like here to make the change. They're on the front lines. They are here to shake things up. They are here to move things around. They're here to use their voice. They're here to work very quickly. You know, I know so many children who, and this was my experience as well as a child, where I felt so limited by my child form and my child, like what I was able to do, it was so frustrating to me because I wanted to do so much more, but I wasn't allowed to. And so
you're an
these,
activator. No,
yes,
yeah, you're an.
yes, for sure I was. I was like, is this over yet? I'm like, I want to be, you know, of age so that I can start actually doing what I want to do here. Um,
Wow.
and so that's many of these energies that are coming in now, these activator energies where they're really here to like shake things up and help us to sort of agitate things, but in a really loving way, in order to create the change that we need. And then there are the what I call the integrators. So these are the energies who are here, like such soft, like loving, gentle, grounded energies who are really here to help us adjust and kind of, I almost see them as like smoothing the energy over, you know, smoothing over energies of division and polarity and separation and these sorts to integrate it back into love and to light. And so they're here to kind of help us do that in real time, but also I think after, helping us integrate into these new frequencies and creating new jobs and new structures and so on and so forth. And so these are sort of the subcategories within this
Yeah.
current generational wave that I'm seeing the most of. And I'm sure there's more. I'm sure that this is not everything, but this is
Yeah.
kind of how I've been able to group them loosely to understand more about what these energies are interested in and what their primary purpose is.
And what age roughly then, when you're saying over the, you're talking up to about 30, are you into the 30s, would you say?
Yeah.
Being born
Yeah.
now as well, but you know, because yeah, if you're talking Pluto and Scorpio, Sagittarius, you're yeah, definitely in their 30s as well, would they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I also think, you know, it's so interesting just to look back in history of like the different waves and how each one is so integral to what
Mm,
comes next, you know, and I think
mm,
everyone in their own way is playing a role, right?
yes.
Everyone in their own way is playing a role. And that's so exciting to me, you know, to just feel that.
Yeah, and doesn't it, I think as well, it might help us, you know, often relationships with parents and children, or no matter what age you are, can be challenging. But when you can
Mhm.
start to see it from the point of view
Yeah.
of maybe the role they're serving for you and you're serving for them, like zooming out again, as you said, to the big picture, that seems to be the answer to all of this. The more interconnected we can realize we are,
Yes.
particularly now on the planet,
Oh,
can
so important.
really could help. What
Yeah.
sort of things? So when you talked about society and where it's going and how it's going to run, are there some, it might be nice just to finish up getting some sort of an
Yeah.
inkling of, you know, yeah, where we're going and what it can look like.
Well, what they say is what they tell me, and what they seem to be telling their parents is in this new, um, where we're going is that in many ways we're returning to simplicity. We're getting rid of excess. We're getting rid of unnecessary distractions and focuses. And so there seems to be this real kind of, well, that's not important. We don't need that. And so we're going to clear that out. And so I think this can manifest in so many different ways. But, you know, they tell me that it's parents, you know, and families being able to let go of the things that just don't light them up, that don't serve them, that are, you know, weighing them down in some way, shape, or form, whether that's beliefs, whether that is hobbies, interests, jobs. You know, there's just this real like cleaning up and out on a micro level, but I think this is also happening at a macro level as well, in kind of the collective frequency where it's like simplicity, return to foundation, return like kind of back to basics in a sense of like what is actually important. There seems to be this like returning, this spiral path of returning, returning, returning. So that's a really big theme. They
Mm.
also tell me that we're moving into a world where, um, you know, the feminine is in dominance in some way, shape, or form, where mystical arts and intuition and spirituality and connection to the divine and the divine mother and father and masculine and feminine balance is honored and and revered. Also, this return to nature, respecting and honoring and connecting with nature, seeing the earth as a living, sentient, conscious being, and everything that lives upon her as a living, sentient, conscious being. So all the things that we know, but I think that
We
they're,
feel them. Yeah, yeah.
yes, we
They're
feel
all,
them.
yeah, yeah.
And I think they are really here to actually make that a majority reality for most of this planet and most of this earth. I think that they're showing me a lot about how we'll look differently about, or we'll think differently about how we connect with each other, how we communicate with each other. I think they're teaching a lot of us like conscious communication, how we are getting so lost in our communication and we're missing each other and othering each other. And so there's really like, I think at the core of it, if I had to sum it up, I think they're bringing us back, because I believe we've been here at some points and we've lost it and we've regressed, but back into unity consciousness,
Mm,
away from polarity consciousness and back into unity consciousness, and just like living in union with the earth, with each other, with our spirit, with our connected to our spirit all the time. So, and I think they're also just saying, like, because of this, like, everything, because this is so fundamentally different than how the mainstream kind of world operates, that naturally, because of that, there's going to be a lot of things that shift at the physical level. So, jobs, how we access like energy, paying for hydro and paying for water, like, all of this is going to change because foundationally it just is not necessarily in alignment with like what is changing, what's happening, and where we're going. So there's so much more I could say, but
I
that's sort
know.
of what I've been shown in terms of like what they're actually trying to do.
Yeah. And what would they like us to do to support them?
Oh my gosh, listen to them.
Listen to them.
They just say we have so many, like, we have these visions and these codes and this kind of encoded
Mm,
knowing of what needs to happen and what is shifting and how I'm actually here to serve that and how you're here to serve that. And I just always say, like, listen to children. They really have so much to say if you let them, and so much to show you if you let them. And they really are, I mean, so close to the this divine. I have this beautiful story that someone told me over the years where this new mother had a toddler. He was like 3 or 4, and he just had a new baby. His brother was born, and one night the baby was in his crib, and the toddler was in his room with the door cracked open, and the mother was listening. She could hear him talking to him, and she was listening at the door. And the boy was saying to his little brother, newborn baby, he was saying, oh, this story always gives me goosebumps, but he was saying, you have to help me remember. I'm starting to forget. I'm starting to forget. And you just came from there. And I know that you still remember. And I can see it in you. I can see the light in you. And I need you to help me. I'm starting to lose it. I'm starting to forget who I am. And he was like talking to his newborn brother, asking him to help him. And I mean, that's just
oh my
perfect.
God, I've
Isn't that
chilled,
beautiful?
isn't it? It is. Oh
I
my
know.
God. I
I
think
know.
yeah, to even to notice that. So do you are more of those children coming in, meaning hopefully we won't forget and we'll just end up back in the full remembrance.
That's it.
Isn't that the idea?
That's it.
We don't forget because the rest
Absolutely.
waking up from
Absolutely.
the amnesia.
Yes, that's it. And I think that that is something that they're coming in already with a inclination towards, but I also believe that it's our job as parents and caretakers and aunts, uncles, grandparents,
Yeah.
to protect these children's enlightenment. I think it's the most important thing we can be doing too, and that's what I mean when I say listen to them. We can listen, we can protect their enlightenment by hearing, like, really truly getting to their level and hearing what they have to say, and encouraging them to share their light and what they remember, and that's one of the ways that we can begin to protect this enlightenment, but also obviously to not smush them and to minimize what they're saying and to say, oh, that's just your imagination, or you know uh, I know that's many of us were told as children, oh, I'm seeing this and this and that. Oh, well, It's just your
Mm,
imagination.
yeah.
So that's another way that we can really protect their enlightenment so that they don't have to do what I did or what maybe you had to do
Yeah.
or anyone had to do,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah.
okay, I'll deal with this when I'm, you know, a little older and I can actually do it. We want ch these children, they want to stay connected. It's so important for them to stay connected for their whole life and they never have to forget and then remember again.
Brilliant. And
Yeah.
also the food, sorry, just strikes me as well if
Yeah.
they're very sensitive, because I think I'm even finding that now things I could
Yeah.
eat, I can't. So it's
Yep.
really, really important the detoxing.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I think we're moving through that now anyways, the less toxicity
Yes.
that we can give them as well, because they're very sensitive,
Absolutely.
aren't they? Like just to, yeah, all of that artificial food we've been fed.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yes. And it's interesting because that's kind of in the like many of them are it's so interesting. So many people I talk to where they're, living in cities and, you know, buying all their food from the shops and the grocery
Oh,
stores, and then the spirit baby starts to come around them, and all of a sudden they say, I feel this need to move to the country and to start a farm and to have my own animals. And, that's not a coincidence. That is that energy
yeah.
influencing those people. Yeah.
And I'm getting the sense, just as I let you go now, is that these are, we talk about babies and spirit babies, but as you said at the
Mhm.
very beginning, they're intelligent souls. These are powerful souls. So
Yes.
I've noticed that with a particular child I've known, they're a bit older now, they're a teenager,
Hmm.
highly sensitive, very stressed and anxious. But my God, I've seen a fire in them that I've never, you will not get them to do what they don't want to do. So it's like as well, they're coming
Yeah.
in, if they're encoded with all of these codes and they know what they're here for, they're intelligent, there's a power
Yep.
to these souls, they're not.
Yes.
So,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's why sometimes actually, spirit babies is actually not my term. It's a term
mm,
adapted by a man named Walter McKishan who wrote the book Spirit Babies in 2006 and published it. And sadly, he's passed away now, but he popularized that term. And, it's a good term because I think it communicates the concept very well, but they've
yes,
actually told me that they prefer to be called incoming souls. That's a better term for them.
yeah, I like that.
Because yeah,
Yeah.
because they're like we're not babies. We're like very high frequency intelligent souls who just so happen to have to begin our life in the body of a baby. So, yeah.
Yeah, that I think that's a good way to remember that. Yeah, really, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emily. I'm
Thank
conscious of
you.
your time. I know you're on a tight
Yeah.
deadline. If people want to contact you, I presume obviously and I'll put all your links in the description
Thank
box, your
you.
book, and you work with people. Do you work with them remotely as well as in person?
I do. Yeah, I
Yeah,
work with people all over.
yeah.
I do have the book. I wrote that in 2023. It's a great place to start. It's called A Cosmic Bond, Communicating with Your Spirit Babies from Preconception to Birth. It's a great place to start. And yeah, just you can find me pretty much anywhere at Emily the Medium. You'll find me if you search that up. So thank you for having me here. Thank you for opening up and initiating this beautiful conversation. It was such a lovely way to spend an afternoon getting to talk
Yeah.
with you. So thank you.
Me too. I'm really
Yeah,
grateful, really
yeah.
grateful. Thank you, Emily, and
Thank you.
we'll welcome more of these souls in with open arms. And
Yes, we will. Yes, we
thank
will.
you,
Thank
everyone, for
you.
listening. And until the next time, take care.